So now I am going to load up a program called Superforms, or a library called Superforms. Let me do this right here. We're going to call this register form user form data. And this is going to hopefully take super validate. Oh, we got imported manually. Super validate forms server, and then super validate. So yeah, SvelteKit Superforms is a really awesome library. It leverages Zod to make validation a lot easier for us. And on the server, it does both client side and server side validation. So on the server itself, we just want to return that in our load function. We just finish write things out, and then I'll explain a bit more. Super validate. And so one of the first parameters it takes is the default values for the form. So let's see, we'll get back to here in a bit, and then we want to just do the what do we call it? The register user. Oh shoot, what did I call it? Yeah, so let's just make that a bit more clear. Register user saw schema. Awesome. Do that right there. So back to this first argument, which is the object of our fields. So we can set the default value. So here we're just going to say Edwards default. So that's clear. And let's see, email. Whoops. And then test@gmail.com. And then finally, password is password. Awesome. So we'll come back to this later, but we want to pass that information to our client to better handle the validation. We're going to import the client side aspect of Superforms, which is Superforms, and then client, and then Superform. Const. Oops, we want to do a deconstructing object, Superforms, and that one, let's see, it accepts. The first parameter is again that Zod schema register user schema Zod. Awesome. That's just how the way this library is set up. I'm not sure why the error is, but we will get back to it. And the second parameter is the options. So we want to reset form to be true after submission. So it could reset the form. The other option is tainted message, which is like, are you sure you want to leave this form? For now, we want to leave that as null because that message is a bit annoying for the demo purpose. And finally, we want to get our validators for the client-side validation, which is just the register South schema. Awesome. So actually, I was incorrect for this. You need to pass in the register user form data that we had loaded up on the server. So now everything is correct. And definitely check out SvelteKit Superforms to learn more about this library, how to use its different functions and how to use them. But yeah, this is what we need to get things set up. And this function returns a couple of things. So it returns enhance, which is for progressive enhancement. SvelteKit has enhance function as well, but I believe Superforms is leveraging that to be able to utilize it with its library. And we want to also get form, which contains the form values that we're about to see in a bit. We also, if there's any errors, because again, it's leveraging Zod for the validation. So this store right here, all these are, well, except for the enhance, are stores that contain different information. So this arrows is going to take all the Zod arrows for our form. And that's about it for now. And now we want to bind the form value from this store. Let's see, name, and we also want to get the error message. So errors, again, this is a store, so we need the $sign. I feel like I'm not spelling this properly. Okay, there we go. Errors names. And we want to do the same for the other two. Let me just kind of create a bit of spacing so things are a bit more legible. And that is about it. Oops. And we're going to call this email. And this is going to be password. Awesome. So now that we have this in place, let's also use this action. I said action. Enhance. The enhance action. So we got that in place. And we just need a method, which is post. I always forget that one. So that's about it. If we go back to our thing, it crashed. I think it's still crashed, so we gotta load this back up. Crash from the errors while we were setting things up. We go back here, we could see the default values that we had passed in from the server side. So that was just for demonstration purposes. You might need this for in certain things. I don't have any in mind right now since I'm focused on this, but yes, it could be very useful to have the default values when needed. So we remove that and those are gone. And we'll close this so things are a bit more clear. And now if we try to submit the form, right? Nothing is happening, nothing at all. There is a submission occurring, but what do you call it? The reason why we're not seeing anything, especially we're not seeing our validation, or there should be errors being issued out since these things are blank. The reason why those errors are not being issued out is because we did not specify it. Although we created a XOD schema object, right now we did not specify that which fields are required. So we're about to do so now. So the name field, and then take a callback function. Okay, this is also things that reference the Drizzle document for how to get familiar with what I'm doing here and the whole syntax. Schema could be, it's just a variable for the callback, so we can name it whatever, and then we could target our, what do you call that, our actual table properties or columns. And from here, we want to specify that it's a minimum of 2 characters, and we could write a descriptive message. I think we could just do like this. Awesome, the name must be 2 characters long. Invalid email. We could actually just leave this as is since the error message is going to be the same. And then finally for password, cool. Let's just change this to 8 for the demo purpose. And now, since we specified what is needed for the validation, once we try to submit, and it's going to issue out those error messages accordingly. So that takes care of that. So we have the client side we have both the client side and the server side validation from this schema alone. And again, this is all made possible through the use of superforms. Well, you could create a XOD schema that would serve as both client and server side validation without superforms. But superforms has some niceties that we are about to see in a moment. More of that we're about to see in a moment. So let's see, let me just see where we're at here. And that's about it. So let's continue building out. And now we need a action for when the form is submitted. So export const actions of type action and get that in place. For Svelte actions, we could either have a default action, which we do not need to specify any action name here. if we have a default action, and the keyword for that is just default. And yeah, that's only if you have one action for that particular page. But we are going to have two actions, one to register the user and one to delete all users. So let's create them accordingly. So register user. Thank you for, oh no, well, that kind of messed up. And finish out this arrow function. And this is going to, we're going to need the requests from this. And here we're going to say const register user form data equals super validate. We're actually going to use specify TypeScript type for this, so we could get type safety for error message, which I'll show you in a little bit. So type of this is called the user schema, and we're going to pass an alert. Whoops, message type. Then we do request, and finally schema. I didn't import this, it seems like, so let's get that. So boom. All right, this is another one of those pre-made things that I have in place. So it's mainly for forms, form messages, for either if you want to issue out a success, error warning, or information to the user. I just use this for I just use this type for that purpose. So that is that. Now this super validate function, it returns a couple of things, but the one that we're interested in is it valid, right? This will tell us whether or not the form submission is valid or not. As you remember, there is already client-side validation that's being done. So the reason we're also validating it here on the server is if the user were to bypass the client-side validation for whatever reason, for nefariousness or which is the most dangerous, then this would act as an extra layer of defense to make sure that the form submission is indeed proper. So if this equals false, right, then we just want to return a message to the user. This message function is, we already imported it, is also from Superbase. I said Superbase, Superforms. And it takes the, what do you call it, the validated Zod object as the first parameter. And then the second parameter, it takes a object which will act as our message to alert the user. So that's the type safety from the alert message type I showed earlier. And we'll just keep this basic validation message. So that's pretty good. We got the client-side validation now. Now, if everything is correct, the user got to this point successfully, we want to now check if the email exists. So for that, we're going to create a few database utilities to do that. So actually, we don't want to create a file. We want to create, sorry, we don't want to create a file, but we don't want to create a folder, but we want to create a file. Bear with me. I'm in pain right now. Utils dot server.ts. Cool. Yeah, the reason we didn't make the schema having the .server.cs extension is we're going to want to use this right here in the client. So that is why. Yeah, so this actually, we might not need it. So scratch what I said, because before I ran into an issue that was kind of related to that. But I'm not too sure. I'll explore that in another time. So it might be okay to kind of do a .server.cs for this. I would have to kind of confirm later, but we're just leaving it without it for the time being. So back to the utils function. Let's actually close this out as well, because I believe we are done with it. Whoops. So close that out. And now we could get back to building out the utilities. The first one is export const check if email exists. And that's good. Let's close this out. And then we're going to do const query result equal await database dot select. So this is the database we created from Drizzle, and it has some nice database methods, such as what we're selecting from the database. And in this case, we want to be, if we didn't specify anything, it'll just return all the columns from that users table. But in this case, we only want the user's email. So email. So it takes a key paired value as you see, and this is just somewhat arbitrary. You want to make sure that it's relevant to what you're calling. You can name this anything, but you want to make sure that it's relevant for when you call it, when you reference it later. And then the value itself is going to be whatever column that you're trying to retrieve from the database. So that is that. And then from there, chain function, we want to get the users table from the users table that we're trying to pull this information from. And then finally, where we want to use a equal function to make some comparisons, where the users table. So first takes what you want to compare from the database. So in this case is the user's email, and then the input email that we're getting from the user. Oh, that's about it. And just to recap, we're doing a database query where we want to check if an email exists. So in the users table, we're only selecting the email from the users table, where and the row from the users table that we want to select is the one that has the same email as the one that the user passed in from the form. And then we're just going to return if there is anything from this. Whoops. If there's a value from this, it's going to return true. If there's no value, it's going to return false, indicating that this email does not exist. So that is that. We're just going to pull that function here now. Const is email already registered, and awesome. It's actually data.email. Did we pull in this function? I think we did. And this is called const. So now, if email already registered equals true, we want to return an error to the user, letting them know that this email already exists. So we could use a function called setError from Superforms that takes in 3 parameters. It takes in the sod object. It takes in the particular field that's we want to set the error to, and then the third parameter is the message that is going to be displayed to the user, which will test all that out once this has been fully built out for the registration. So that's awesome. Now, if everything checks out and they got to this point, we want to insert that new user's information to the database. So let's go back to database utils to create that insert function. Insert new user equals async. This one is just going to be user. And now we could use that user insert schema that we created a while back for our type here. And boom. Also, we could have written all of this directly within this page, but it's best practice to separate that type of logic. You never know if you might be using this function elsewhere in your code. And plus, it's less clutter to store all this in a different file. And it's also more organized. So, all your database utils is in one file that you could easily pull up. So let's finish out this insert function. So yeah, we're just going to, for the most part, it got it. For the most part, it got it. Actually, we do not need to vary for this. We're just going to return this directly. We're not doing anything with it, but we're just going to return it anyway. We're not doing anything with the information that this query returns. So we're going to say insert, and we're going to want to insert something into the users table. And the values that we want to insert is the values of the user that the user submitted via the form. And that is it for the insert function. Pretty quick and simple. So now we want to await insert new user, and it takes in the user's object. So we're just going to specify those things. We get the nice autocomplete from our type and more autocomplete from VS Code, which is beautiful. Awesome. So at this point, we're pretty much done with the registration. We just want to return a message now informing that the registration was successful to the user. Awesome. So that is thought. And we're about to test that out now. We go to our file and we go to, oh no, gotta reload this again because things crashed as we were coding stuff. If somebody has a solution for this, let me know. So the issue right now is sometimes if I am typing some code that's not complete or invalid, the server, the Vite server will crash. And it's a bit annoying to have to restart that up again. So if I could prevent the crash somehow, please let me know. But yeah, we're about to test out the registration. Again, we got that nice validation in place. And boom, I think we got it complete. Okay. Oh, yes, that's why nothing happened. Yes, since we're not using a default action, we actually have to specify what action we're going to be using. And again, this awesome function from the library that I showed earlier, it has type safety and autocomplete, not for just routes, but for also the different form actions. So this is the one that we need here. I probably should have named this register user form action to be more clear, but this is fine for now. So now that we have that in place, if we try to register again, it's going to reset the form this time. And there's no notification because we didn't set that up yet. But if we look at the database, boom, we got our information. Awesome. So now let's just set up the validation in place for this. And let's see. We could close this out and back to here. So one of the options that this accepts is the unupdated function. So this gets ran whenever there's been an update from, meaning that our code got to the server and it completed what it needed to do. Either it was successful or it was an error, but it completed what it needed to do on the server. So that's when this unupdated function is going to run. Again, if you guys need more information, definitely check out the documentations for SvelteKit Superforms. And what we're going to do, we're going to actually bring in another store from this function or this object, the return values. And with this, we're going to first check if there's no message, right? Then we're just going to return. A message would be populated within this store whenever we make like a submission and it hits one of the like return messages that we specified. So it's either going to return this or that, because that's what we have specified. But if there's nothing there, then we just want to like return early. And then from there, we could deconstruct this. I gotta figure out how to set up type safety for this, because I'm kind of shooting in the dark, hoping that I spell things correctly, but I believe that I did. So if the error is successful, we want to issue out a success message, the success message we have specified in the server, via the toast from SvelteSonar. So that is success. And we just do an alert message. Awesome. So that's that. And we just want to do the same thing if there's an error. And we could just do that. So if we try to register again, we'll give an example this time. We're going to try to register with the same email, and it's going to inform us that this user already exists. But we're going to do something new. We're going to say test2, same password, and boom. Now we get the beautiful toast message of what just happened. And if there was an error, it would issue out an error message as well. So with that, that's pretty much it for the registration, I believe. I think there might be something I might missing, but for now, I am going to end this video and go to part 3, which is setting up the login.